Hey everyone, I'm Jack, full-time UI UX designer. I'm also an illustrator, an animator, and a connoisseur of donuts. And today I will be your host for this illustration challenge. I can't talk today. Today we're going to be throwing everything in the kitchen sink. We'll be working with some 3D effects. We'll be creating some 2D elements over top. We're going to be working on stylized portraits, combining those 2D and 3D elements, all to build details on our character in a way that lets us work smarter and not harder. To get started, check below this video in the description for the links to your starter file with resources for today, as well as links to other challenges in our Discord creative communities. Let's move quickly into Illustrator because we have lots to cover. I've got some notes off to the side for you if you need a reminder about working in 3D space. I've also got a couple of articles about character design here if you want to do a little bit more research and learning. Make sure, oh, you can't actually even see it. There we go. Make sure you've got your 3D and materials window open. Under window, it'll be the first one there. You can just make sure it's checked on. I've got it checked on. And any windows that I'm going to be working with today, if you don't happen to see them in your Illustrator, just grab the name that I mentioned. It'll be listed here in the Windows panel. All you got to do is make sure it's checked on. Alright, so today I don't have a specific person in mind. I'm going to build this out seeing where the shapes go. For a character portrait, you can feel free to sketch something first or follow along with a photo reference of yourself, a friend, even a pet. I use this technique to create a robot illustration in the past, which is a really fun option as well. It's really up to you. So I'll start by drawing out a rectangle. I'm going to go over and in my my toolbar over here, if I click and hold down whichever one of the shapes is kind of visible, I can get to the rectangle tool. Moving over to my artboard, I'm just going to draw out a rectangle. So let's zoom in a little bit. And if I just drag one out, you're going to see I'm going to create a rectangle. Holding down Shift lets me constrain it to a square. So we're going to hold down Shift and create a square here. That looks pretty good size to me. And I'm going to click on my stroke color here, and I'm going to set it to none, either by clicking none down here just below, or if you're not seeing that, you can go over to your swatches panel. It'll be this one here with the red line. There we go. Through it. That'll set no color on your stroke. And then I can double click on the fill color here, and we just pick a nice fill color to kind of get started. I'm just going to pick, let's go with like a nice kind of peach color. I like to work with really saturated colors. Again, feel free to pick whatever color you would like. It can be as, you know, crazy and wild as you want it to be. Alright, so I'm going to now do what Andrew Hochradel affectionately calls make a swirl. I'm going to go up to Effect, and under Warp we can pick a Inflate. And adding an Inflate is going to make a nice base for our swirl. It's going to inflate out the sides so they're a little bit round. We can adjust this setting up more or less to taste, depending on what you kind of want yours to be looking like. I don't want it to be like super crazy round, so I think this is going to be fine. We're going to hit OK. Alright, Anki in our live chat saying, I played with Substance Painter tutorial yesterday and had a lot of fun. That's great to hear. Let me know what kind of things you guys are enjoying creating, either using the 3D Substance programs or 3D in Illustrator. I'd love to hear about it. And you can chat with us live on Behance every day and on the Adobe Live YouTube channel at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. There's a live chat over there if you want to ask questions or just chat with everybody in the community. Alright, we're going to drop down under Object and expand Appearance. I'm going to do that because it's going to take my square. This is still a square with an effect applied to it. And when I do that, it's going to turn that square into our actual shape. So you can see here now I've got points with anchor handles that are creating those shapes. The reason I need to do that is when I select my object, now I'm going to go over to the direct selection tool. I can use these round like little spot. These are the live corner widget. So I can drag the live corner widget in each of these corners here, and it's going to round out the corners so we can get a more kind of rounded shape. There we go. Now we've got a nice swirl. And I'm going to continue to just add a couple more shapes into here, building things out before I go ahead and apply our 3D effects. So I'm going to drag out another rectangle here. This will be like the neck for our character, essentially. We'll just kind of align things up here. I've got smart guides on. You can turn them on under view smart guides. You can see they're checked right here. Just make sure, I always work with these. I don't think I ever not have them on. I might disable them occasionally, but usually they're on. So they kind of let me move and align things to the artboard and with each other with those little pink line indicators. Alright, so we're also going to do the same thing here, and I'm just going to round this out to make a kind of like round base for where our neck joins with the neck shape that we're going to draw. We're going to draw out, you guessed it, another rectangle. So I'm just going to click and drag out another rectangle. This will be for like my torso, and for this one, I'm just going to let it go ahead and kind of fall off the edge of the artboard. Anything that's not on the artboard here is not going to save out with my PNG or my JPEG when I export. So let's change the color of this. I'm going to double click into my color fill here to get my color picker, and I'm just going to change this color to something that kind of contrasts with the color that we've got, maybe like a nice blue. Again, you can kind of feel free to follow along or pick your own color. I'm going to hit OK. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to make this kind of a squircle shape. If I go up to my effects, you can see that I can go down here and I can navigate back down to warp and all of that. But Illustrator kind of stores the last effect you used with the settings still applied at the top. So you don't have to actually go through and do any of that. I can just go to Effect and hit Apply Inflate, and it's going to apply that again. And I'm just going to drag it down a little bit with my selection tool so it's kind of like underneath there. Alright, and let's keep this going. I'm going to also expand to this shape because that's going to be helpful here in a second. I'm going to go to Object, Expand Appearance to again get those shapes. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a bit of a sleeve here to this torso. This is going to make out our shirt. So with smart guides, this is going to be really important to have smart guides on. I'm going to hover over that corner anchor point. That way I can click and have it be perfectly in line with that point. Then I'm just going to drag down kind of at an angle, you know, sort of like making a shirt sleeve. And I'm going to click when I feel happy that that is placed where I kind of want it to be. And then dragging over, if you want, you can hold down Shift for this part. I have Smart Guides turned on, so I don't really need to have that. I don't really need to hold down Shift. And then I'm going to click once I add another point that's kind of inside of my shirt. And then to close this shape, I'm just going to click on my original anchor point. You can see there's a little circle next to my cursor that indicates that it's going to close the shape. So now we've got a little sleeve created, a little triangle. I'm going to switch over to my direct selection tool, and I'm going to grab the anchor point on the far left. And I don't want this to be perfectly, you know, sort of angular here, corner points. I want to add it to be a little bit round. So with the direct selection tool, I can go up here in the control bar, and I've got these convert options for converting the anchor point to either be a corner, which it currently is, and it has no anchor handles, or I convert it to be a smooth corner, which has anchor handles, and that kind of rounds out the shape for me a bit. Now that I've got that, I can adjust these anchor handles to be a little bit smaller if I want to, move the point up just until I get kind of like the shape of a sleeve that I like, something that's a little bit rounder like that. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing while we're here to make my life easier. I'm going to grab another shape. I'm going to go up to the rectangle, and I'm going to switch to the ellipse tool, holding down Shift and dragging. I'm going to create a circle. I don't want this to be blue. I want this to be the base color here, so I'm just going to use my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to click to change that fill color to that. Now I can just drag this over onto the face of my character over here, kind of lining it up. Somewhere in the middle, you can see, if I hover over, you can see where it intersects that back shape. So it's just kind of like in line with my first shape here. Actually, I think we can scale this up a little bit. I'm going to hold down Shift to scale my ear up a little bit. Alright, now that we've got all of that done, I'm going to select my ear, and I'm going to hold down Shift and select my sleeve, and I'm going to go up, and I need to make a copy of these so I can flip them over onto the other side. I can do that really easily, sort of 2-for-1, by going to Object, Transform, and using Reflect. Reflect lets me kind of flip things either, you can see by the little icons, horizontal or vertical. I want, in this case, to flip them vertically. If you wanted to flip something so that it was like, you know, going the other way, you choose horizontal. I'm just going to hit vertical, and don't hit OK here. You're going to want to hit copy. Hitting OK is fine. It's just going to flip the object, but we want to make a copy here. So if I hit copy, now I've got two sets of that ear and that sleeve. And I can just drag them all over. I can, with the selection tool, I can hold down shift if I need to, and that's going to keep them kind of straight across as I drag, if you need a little bit of help keeping them aligned. And I'm just going to align them so that our ears are on either side and our sleeves are on either side. Oh, there's one other thing we should have done, and that's we should have made our arms first. So I'm going to switch over again really quickly to a rectangle, and I can just drag out a rectangle here. If it's the wrong color, you can again use the eyedropper and just, pick the color that you want it to be. And I'm just going to go to right click, and I'm going to choose arrange and send to back. And that's going to send my arm to the back. Again, not concerned about what's happening off of the artboard. I'm just going to let that kind of be. I'm going to use Command C and Command F to copy and paste in front, and then holding down Shift, I'll drag to the other side. So now we've got two arms, and we've got the torso, and we've got the head. We've got our base for our character, right? I'm going to do one more thing here. I know I keep saying that, but we've got a couple more steps that I want to do before we move on to the 3D. Holding down Shift as I click with the selection tool, I'm going to select all of the blue shapes for my shirt. Then I'm going to go over to the Pathfinder panel over here. Again, it's under that window drop down if you need it. And I'm going to choose the first one, Unite. It's going to bring all of my shapes together. Now I'm going to drag to just select my arms and my torso and hit Command G to make a group. Now I can right click and I can go to Arrange and Send to Back, and that's going to put that behind the face and the neck so we have that kind of visible again. I actually think I'm also going to select with the direct selection my shirt color here. It's a little bit hard to see, right? So we're going to like darken this a little bit so it's a little bit easier to differentiate. All right, so we're going to add the shape for the hair right now. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm actually going to use the pen tool to do this. And I know that this can be a little bit tricky to get used to. If you need to take your time and go slow and get some practice with the pen tool, do so. I'm just going to start by hovering over the top right above the head. This takes practice, so be patient, and I'm going to click, and with the pen tool I'm going to drag out in the direction that I want my line to go. So I'm going to drag out to the left side because my next point is going to be on the left side, and I'm going to hold down Shift so that keeps my anchor handles completely straight. So as I do that, they're going to be completely straight. That kind of keeps the curve nice and even as we drag them out. Now I've got one point you can see as I move my line down here. I'm getting that little preview with the path there, and I can click where I want to add my next point over here, and I'm again going to hold down Shift, and this time I'm going to drag up. So I'm kind of curving back up here, and I'm actually going to bring it down a little bit. I think that's going to be a little bit too wild, something like that. The next point that I'm going to add, I'm just going to click, and I'm going to use a corner here, so I'm not going to actually drag out any anchor points. I'm just going to click, and that's going to create just a plain, straight corner point, like we discussed up here with the convert. So it's got no anchor handles. And then finally, I'm going to move, using my smart guides, you can see that I'm now aligned at the center with my original point. I'm just going to drag and hold Shift to curve that out one more time. I can see a little bit of the head of my character kind of peeking through, so I'll click on my top anchor point here again, and I'll just drag this out a little bit more, holding down Shift, so that I'm sure that I'm covering that top portion there. Alright, I'm going to make another copy of this using the Reflect, so we're going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect, and I'll again want to reflect this vertically and make a copy. Now I can drag this over, holding down Shift, and using Smart Guides, it will show me when I'm aligned with that first shape's points. So Smart Guides for the hair here are going to be really important. Now I can join these 2 points either by hitting Command J or right-clicking and choosing Join. That's going to make this one shape, which is going to be really helpful when we apply our 3D. And let's change the color of this. We'll change it to something darker. Feel free to choose, again, the color that you want. I, personally, this is like, if I imagine this character has like black hair or dark hair. I don't like using pure black. I like using something with a little color, a rich black. So I'm going to go with maybe something like this. Feel free to go with you could go with like a brown or a red or a pink or whatever color you want. And we're just going to hit OK. Once again, I'm going to go to Object, or I'm going to right click. You could also go up to Object, and Arrange, Send to Back to kind of send it behind. I'm going to use this exact same shape to make the bangs in the front. So I'm going to hit Command C and Command F to make a copy in front. And if it's not in front of my face here, I can just go right click, arrange, bring to front, and now it's in front. I'm just going to drag this original shape here all the way up to the top. Go with something like this. I'm kind of looking where the line of the bangs that I want them to be. So there we go, we've got it kind of like in position. That's where I want the bangs to kind of fall on the face, just kind of like right above the ears. Alright, and because we copy and pasted that, we still have that copy on our pasteboard. So I'm just going to hit Command F again, and it's going to paste another copy in front. So our original shape and our one that we moved up here. I'm going to select the first one, holding down Shift, select that second one. And you can go over here and again use the Pathfinder. This time we need to use Intersect. So Intersect's going to remove the two pieces that are outside, and it's only going to keep the section that's going to be intersected. So only the part where those two shapes overlap, and that's going to give me the shape for my bangs. Alright, so I think that's looking pretty good. Lauren is saying, reminds me of the Mandalorian right now when the hair is in front. Yeah, definitely. Lydia is saying, I never understood the curve tool, always the pen tool. The curvature pen tool is really, the use case I like for it, if I switch really quickly, I like using it to kind of drag curves out. So you can see that I find it really handy for like, if I already have a shape and I want to pull a curve shape out, that's what I like to use it for, so. Alright, so now we're going to group all of this. We can apply some 3D effects. I like to apply them in the group so that they all kind of keep the same consistent lighting. So I'll just drag to select everything on my artboard, and I'll hit Command G to make a group. Now we can go over here to our Object tab in the 3D materials, and I'm going to hit Inflate to just add Inflate to this. And you can see right away that for the most part it does a pretty good job. Oh, there's a couple things that we need to do in order to kind of like make sure that this looks good though. So one of the first things I need to do is I need to so when you use an Inflate, anything that's sort of got a fill to it is gonna get merged together. So you can see here that even though these are separate shapes, they're getting kind of merged into one. And we can kind of adjust that by using some lines. So I'll start by, since this is all one group, I'm going to switch, and if I select it with the regular selection tool, it's going to select the whole group. I'm going to switch to the direct selection tool and just select my face here. And I can fix this by going in and adding a stroke. So I'll double click on the stroke here, and I'll change it to a color that's pretty close to the color of my character's kind of base here, but darker. So I'm going to go a little bit darker. You can see over here, kind of get a preview of what that's going to look like. I don't need to be too particular about this. Just when I hit OK, you're going to see... Oh, maybe not. Maybe I do need to make it darker. Hit OK. It looks like I have a copy. Hang on. Let's drag this out and see what's going on in here. Alright, so I might need to, in my layers panel, I think I need to bring this up on top. Yeah, so I needed to grab my shape with the line and make sure that it's on top of the other shape. So I just dragged this on top of the ears and the neck. So in the stacking layer order, we need to make sure that we have that kind of in front. But once you apply that stroke and you've got it kind of in front, if I remove the stroke, you're going to see that it's going to remerge those shapes. So you want to have a stroke and you want to have it kind of on top. The other thing that I'm going to do in here is I'm going to add some lines to differentiate the sleeves. So I'm going to use my Smart Guides, and where it aligns with the anchor point there, I'm going to click, and holding down Shift, I'm just going to click again to create a line here. I'm going to grab my eyedropper and select my shirt color. I'm going to switch my fill and stroke, double click on my stroke, and I'm going to drag it to be darker. So now I've got a darker line over here. I'm going to do the same thing over here, finding the edge of my shirt, clicking, and using Smart Guides, I can even make sure that it's the same height. Now in my layers panel, if I want to make sure that this has the same lighting and I want to add something to my existing 3D effect, so this is, again, applied to the group, right? That's important. We've applied the effect is on our group. I can just drag these into, I'll put them, actually drag them above my shirt layer here. I'm going to drag them in, and you can see that those lines help to differentiate and add like a little bit of dimension to that shirt there, just kind of showing the sleeves, right? Alright, that's looking pretty good. From this point on, this is where I'm going to start to add some 2D elements kind of on top, right? So I'm going to go in here, and I don't really like to add the facial features into the 3D group because it kind of does some weird things. I like to kind of add them outside. So let's add some eyes to our character. I'm going to go over here and select the ellipse tool, and holding down and dragging out, it looks like it's got that blue line, so I'm just going to use the eyedropper to select the same color that I used for my hair color. And one really simple way I like to add some eyes to my character is I like to use an eye shape that takes an ellipse, and then I'm going to click on the bottom point with the direct selection tool. And I'm just going to drag it up a little bit, and that kind of makes this sort of like softer looking eye. So we're going to drag that over. We can drag that sort of on top. I can scale it down a little bit, holding down Shift, Command C and Command F to copy and paste in front. And then holding down Shift, I can just kind of move this over to the other side. Holding down Shift and selecting the other one, I can move it to be kind of in the middle using Smart Guides. So now we've got two eyes that are outside. We can do the same thing with some highlights on the cheeks. So I'm going to grab the circle here and the ellipse tool, and I'm going to drag out another ellipse. This time it's going to be a little bit of an oval. I'll change the fill color on this one to be a little red. Go into like maybe something like a little bit of a pink color. Looks good to me. And to kind of blend this in with the background here, I'm going to drop the opacity in the transparency window. So in the transparency window, I'm going to drag the opacity down a little bit. Just kind of adding some little cheek highlights, and then I'll do the same thing, Command C and Command F, and move it on over here. There we go. And you can continue to keep kind of like building your character up this way. I like to also see what this looks like with the ray tracing turned on. So if you want to see what that looks like, make sure that you hit save first, because the ray tracing can get, it's a little bit heavy and it can slow down your computer a little bit. So before you turn this on, make sure that you have saved first. So I'm going to turn on ray tracing, which is this little icon over here onto the side. You can actually get to a couple different options down here. Once you've turned it on, you can have low, medium, or high. I think somebody was asking about that in the chat the other day. So if you've got the ray tracing and you want it to be a little bit higher quality, you can change that setting. Again, just be careful that it's not so, it's going to slow down your computer. So I'm going to hit ray tracing to turn that on and see what it looks like. And from there, we might want to make some adjustments to the lighting, depending on what it looks like. So that looks pretty cute, right? But we can adjust our lighting settings. So going over into the lighting tab, I'm going to turn that off for a second. I want to make this a little bit brighter. So I'm going to go into my ambient light at the bottom. Remember, your ambient light's kind of like your sun. It's like the overall light for your whole scene. We can bring that up just a bit. And then I might want to increase the intensity as well on my light over here too. Actually, let's pick a lighting setting. Let's go at top left, and I'll bring the ambient light up. And then we can adjust our intensity up a little bit on this as well. Remember that the settings up here are for like your spotlight, and the lighting down here is kind of like the sun. It's the way that I kind of remember it. So then I'm going to go up here into color, and I like to play with colored lights. You can go with like a cooler color. Remember that you need to be really subtle with these, because if you make them too saturated, it becomes really, really intensely lit. So we can go with like a cooler color if we wanted to, and kind of preview what that looks like. We can go with like a slightly warmer color if we want to. At this point, really, it's just kind of like all to taste and seeing what you kind of like. And then I could go through here and I could continue to add some details. We could add like a little mouth here. We could add a nose in really quickly. I'm going to do that by going down to the polygon tool, dragging out here. You can increase or decrease the number of sides. I'm going to decrease all the way down to a triangle. I'm going to grab the color from my base there, round out the corners a little bit. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off ray tracing, and I'm going to hit Command C and Command F to copy and paste that group. And I'm actually going to drag this in here so it has the same lighting effects, and I'm going to delete out these other shapes. The reason I want to do that is I want to actually keep this nose so that it stands out. If we were to add this to our group, it would actually push the nose in, similar to how those lines pushed in. So we want to like create essentially a separate group for our little nose there. And there we go. You can feel free to keep building out your character as you see fit. Like I said, the last thing you want to do is you want to go up to File, Export, and choose Export for Screens. And you're going to want to export out a PNG here. We'll make sure that you've got your background color to white. I'm just going to export this out. And then join our Illustrator Discord community over here. You can find a link below in the description of this video, and under Daily Creative Challenges, under DCC Feedback, navigate to where your file saved and just drag it in there. It's going to drag it into the message box, and you can just hit return, and it's going to share your little character with everybody, and you can get some feedback, check out what everybody else is working on. Allison worked on the strawberries. Love those. So much fun. Everybody seems to be loving the mug. But that's going to be it for me for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this set of Illustrator 3D challenges. Thank you for joining me for this illustration challenge. We went over 3D effects, a little bit of lighting, a lot of drawing with shapes in the pen tool and drawing over top with 3D effects. We're live every day at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time at behance.net/Adobe Live and on the Adobe Live YouTube channel. And there's even more live content up after me. We've got Andrew up next with the 3D bootcamp. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Bye, everyone!